All right. I'd like to call to order the December 28, 2022 Long Hill Township Committee meeting. Madam Clerk.
In compliance with the Open Public Meetings Act of New Jersey, adequate notice of this meeting, specifically the time, date, and public call-in information, were included in the meeting that was electronically sent to the Echo Staten and posted on the Township website. The agenda and public handouts for this meeting can be viewed online at www.longhillnj.gov. A public comment period will be held in the order it is listed on the meeting agenda. Committeeman Lavender.
Here.
Committeeman Ray.
Present.
Committeeman Verleza.
Present.
Deputy Mayor Paserchia.
Present.
Mayor Dorsey.
Present. Just like to say, Mr. Veleza is here. He could not be in person because he was exposed to somebody that tested positive to COVID. So that's the only reason he's not in the building with us today.
And the attorney.
What? Oh, and Jack has the flu or something, so he's not. He can't come in either. All right. So stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty
and justice for all.
All right. Let's see what we got here. All right, the first order of business, I believe, is the ordinance 504-22. It's a second reading and adoption of the basic discharge of firearms ordinance in the township. At this point, I'll open the public hearing to anybody from the public that wants to comment. They have 3 minutes to do so on this ordinance.
Where's the clock?
Right here.
Good. Because I can't speak without that clock. Charles Reynolds, Millington. I'll comment on this ordinance and I'll comment on the first two. I think on December 27th, these two ordinances impact a lot of people in town, and I don't think you should approve it today till the next public meeting. That's my recommendation anyway. If you're going to continue under 3.3-7.3 exceptions, K2, item E, I strongly recommend that you update that section with the new lot and block numbers so it's clear to the public what that exception is. Just so you know, that's a problem we had in the 80s on Heritage.
Which one?
It's exceptions, 3-73K under 2E. They're beginning at the point northeastern corner of lot 10-21 in block 11. Our block numbers have changed and that needs to get updated.
I agree with Mr. Renowitz. I think we could do that administratively.
We can do that. Why, Jack? I'm sorry?
Administratively.
Oh,
Administratively.
All right.
There you go. Thank you.
Good morning, Joe Farandino, 623 Chestnut Street. I'm still scratching my head trying to figure out why anybody would want to do this. The first thing I want to know about is why one citizen or one person in this county's rights are more important than the other. Mr. Centimore came to this board, got the approval for his gun range, and then because the people from the swamp, florist or whatever the shop is, complained, that it was revoked. Why are their rights, property rights, more important than Mr. Centimore's?
Well, Mr. Centimore was a victim here as well. He received bad information from somebody who didn't check the ordinance. So I feel bad for Mr. Centimore as well in this whole thing. So I think everybody's rights are the same. I mean, basically, this ordinance has been in place since I think the 60s or at the latest 1973. This is the first time it came up. And if Mr. Centimore did the right thing, he asked, he was provided bad information and acted on that bad information. So if the ordinance was followed right from the beginning, Mr. Centimore wouldn't be in that position. The Great Swamp Greenhouse and his neighbors wouldn't be in his position either.
In the paperwork, in the report, the MRI report, it said that Chief Naga unilaterally gave Mr. Centimore permission to make that range.
That's true.
That's not true.
Absolutely
No, sir.
true.
No, it is not. And when things like that go on, that's why people in the community are outraged. They come up here and call the people on the council liars. The time that was done was after the town council approved his gun range.
That's absolutely not true.
What are the dates? Well, could we know that information, because it
I
seems
personally
like...
spoke to Mr. Senamore long before I ever came to Township Committee, so I know what he told me, unless he was lying to me.
That's not the information.
And I don't think Bobby lied to me.
That's- You got July 13th was when the town council okayed his gun range. August 10th was when the topic came up about the florist, or the plant house, the greenhouse, and then he rescinded, he took it back. Okay? The other problem is, whenever there's a question asked, we don't have that information, we can't divulge that information. You know why I believe this town's gotta spend a fortune on attorneys? Is because there's no transparency. Everything's cloak and dagger. Nobody could get any information unless they file an Oprah request. And to me, it seems odd, because I'm simple-minded, that we have a mayor who's an attorney, we have an attorney that's on retainer for the township, and then we got 3 more law firms for these Oprah requests. I only thank God that the mayor was not a brain surgeon, otherwise the whole town would be mandatory to have lobotomies.
My brother's
What's-
a brain surgeon. That's coincidentally. Joe, I'm being transparent. There were complaints about that gun range before Memorial Day. It was up and running at least at Memorial Day, if not before, and I know that for a fact. So what you said, your timeline is right. You just didn't know the timeline before June or July. But it was up and running, and there were complaints coming to check the police reports. There were complaints long before June. I'm being transparent
A
with you.
mistake. I'm
No,
gonna
that's
go
okay.
look up the paperwork
No,
myself.
that's fair. You can do that, and you'll see.
Mr. Mayor, just one
Go
thing
ahead.
for clarification, and Jack, I don't know if you can hear me. This committee never approved a gun range. What it did, and Jack, I'd rather you speak to this, my recollection is we held the decision regarding the gun range in abeyance. There's a big difference between approving something that was in violation of a township ordinance and approving it. This committee never approved the gun range.
Please do not mislead the
Jack,
public,
excuse me,
Mr.
excuse me,
Pasarsha.
Excuse me, Jack Pigeon is speaking. Jack?
Yes, Deputy Mayor, you are correct. What we did was we held enforcement in abeyance until the next Township Committee meeting, until we could ascertain all the facts.
Thank you, Jack. I hope that
You
is
had a
clear.
vote to conditionally
Well, it's not your turn
approve.
yet. Wait.
Who's speaking? Jack is
I
done.
am right now. Jack is done, and you have to come up and say your name just like
My
everybody else
name is
does.
Kathy O'Leary. I live in Millington. And I'm sorry. It makes me aggravated when you're not honest with the public, okay? And as Mr. Ferrandino just said, this is not like just me being pissed off. I mean, you said at the last meeting there were 77 Oprah requests in 1 month. That's not because people feel like they can trust what's going on here. And not one of them came from me, by the way, just for the record. And I didn't suggest anybody send one either, as has been suggested by certain members of this body on previous occasions as well. However, you absolutely did conditionally approve the gun range until the next meeting. There was a vote to conditionally approve the gun range. You want to rewrite history now? That's what happened. I watched the meeting more than once, and it was written in the paper. So
Town
please,
council has
please
spoken
stop.
to it. Town council
Please
has
stop.
spoken to it. That is the answer.
Please stop lying to the public. Thank you.
Okay. Ms. Phillips, we had received 77 Oprah requests. How many different people were those requests from? 77. Was it 77 individuals, or was it broken down by the same individuals over and over and over again?
When I looked for August, it was, I didn't count how many from specific individuals. It was just 77 Oprah requests in that.
Thank you.
Anybody else speaking on the gun range?
Dennis Sandow, Millington, with just a nit. I'm troubled by exception A. Law enforcement officers of any government agency, federal, state, county, municipal, at all times. Does that mean that a deputy sheriff from West Virginia who's visiting his relatives in Long Hill is permitted to use his firearm in Long Hill? Does that mean that a town constable, which is a legal law enforcement officer in Pennsylvania, can come visit a relative in Long Hill and use a firearm at all times, and any seem to broaden this more than is necessary? I mean, you might grant an exception for local law enforcement officers in the pursuit of their duty, but I'm not sure if at any time is appropriate, and you might think about that.
Thank you,
I
Dennis.
take no position on the rest of the ordinance.
Thank you, sir.
Dennis, that's why it refers to NJSA 2C 39C, so it incorporates that by reference.
Megan, anybody on Zoom wants to comment on this ordinance?
If anybody on Zoom would like to make a public comment, please raise your hand now. I don't see anyone, Mayor.
Thank you. All right, so, let's see. Motion to approve ordinance 504-22.
So moved.
Second from anyone.
Second.
Thank you, Vic.
Committeeman Lavender?
No.
Committeeman Ray?
No.
Committeeman Verleza? Vic? Committeeman Verleza?
Yes, hold on.
Committeeman Verleza?
Yes, if I vote yes, I'm voting to approve it or deny it.
Approve.
Move it.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Paserchia?
Yes.
Mayor Dorsey?
Yes. All right, moving on. Second reading. This is ordinance 506-22. It updates the township code for registration and compliance of foreclosure properties. I believe, and Jack can correct me if I'm wrong, this basically was changed to comply with state law that was changed since the last time we passed this. Jack, is there anything else that I missed?
Jack, you're muted. Oh, I think you're good. Go ahead, sorry.
Sorry. Yeah, the state adopted a law after most towns had adopted ordinances enacting this policy, and they had some different notice requirements and things, so we've totally amended our ordinance to comply with the state law.
All right, so anybody from the public have any questions or comments regarding this ordinance?
Kathy O'Leary, Millington. So is this in replacement of the property maintenance ordinance that you were considering, or is this in addition to the property maintenance ordinance that you're considering? And where, if it is in addition to, where does that ordinance stand?
Jack, I'll let you handle that.
Replaces the current ordinance that deals with maintenance of properties in foreclosure. It has nothing to do with the property maintenance code we discussed earlier.
So then where does that ordinance stand?
We're gonna renew it next year. We'll renew discussion next year.
Thank you.
Anyone online, Madam Clerk?
If anybody online would like to make a public comment, please raise your hand now. I don't see anyone, Mayor.
All right, so I move,
Motion to approve ordinance 506-22.
thank you.
Second reading.
Second.
Madam Clerk?
Committeeman Lavender?
Yes.
Committeeman Ray?
Yes.
Committeeman Verleza?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Paserchia?
Yes.
Mayor Dorsey?
Yes. All right, consent agenda resolutions, 22-315 to 22-320. The only thing I'd like to talk about is the transfer of money. The senior center came to us about a month ago. They have some capital issues going on. The building, it's getting a little older. The HVACs, one of the HVAC units went down, and they're looking for some help to fix the HVAC unit. So what the transfer we're doing is, I believe it's, what, $10,000, Nancy?
It's $10,000.
Yeah, $10,000 going to transfer from surplus to the senior center so they can get that HVAC issue addressed. Other than that, I don't have anything else to say. Anybody else have anything they want to say about this consent agenda resolutions?
I'm recusing myself from 22-3717.
All right. Other than that? Nope. Let's see, motion to approve the consent agenda, consent resolution subject to Brendan's abstention, 315 to 320.
So moved.
Motion
I'm
to
sorry,
approve.
Scott.
Second.
Committeeman Lavender?
Yes.
Committeeman Ray?
Yes.
Committeeman Verleza?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Paserchia?
Yes.
Mayor Dorsey?
Yes. All right, liaison reports. Brendan, you got anything?
Nothing for me.
Got it.
No, just a thank you to all of our emergency services, first responders, the police, and especially the volunteers for what they've done. Anybody who's been following, there's been a lot of calls over the last couple of weeks. While all of us were with our families, so many times they were called away. So just a big thank you to them.
All right. Let's see, Scott, you got anything? I'm sure you do.
No reports.
Oh, okay. Let's see, the Sterling, we have a report from the fire departments. The new officers for Sterling, Al, the DPW director, is now the chief again. Deputy chief is Nick Pepe. Assistant's Antonio Centurion. Captain is Matt Pacone. And Lieutenant's Joe Conant. And I don't know where Antonio lives, but I know all the other people live within 3 blocks of the fire department, so everybody with good response time from the officers. More importantly, there's a house fire on Friday, I think it's late night or early morning going into Christmas Eve in town. All our first responders got there quickly. They managed to stop the fire. Nobody was hurt. The house was saved, subject to water damage. A pipe burst as well. They had to get the water shut off. It was freezing out. So thank to all the men and women who responded and our sister companies that came to help. You did a great job. You saved the house. Nobody was hurt, and the family hopefully will be able to get moved back in there soon. So great job on that. The DPW report. They're still doing pothole repairs. So if you see a pothole or have one, please go on the website. You just report it. It goes right to the DPW, and they'll put it on the list of things to do. They've been doing their tree trimming, as usual. They're still installing the playground mulch at the playground this week. They're doing Sterling. I know they were over in Myersville last week. They're repaving the section of Northfield Road, or they're overseeing it from Clover Hill to Northfield Road is complete, and the full repave is scheduled for the spring. So this is just a fix. Please check the calendar, the town calendar that came out a couple weeks ago for the bulk pickups and rules for that. There was an error in the calendar. There are no Saturdays listed for resident drop-off. However, that ones are starting in the spring. Yeah, so just keep an eye on that. We'll announce it when they open up. So even though the calendar says we're not doing that, we will when the weather gets warmer. There is recycling pickup Friday. What's it, this Friday? Yeah, so recycling, instead of Tuesday, it's coming Friday. So please put your recycling out. I'll put an announcement out. Make sure you go on their Facebook page. I'm sure they'll put that announcement out on that. And you could drop off compost when the yard is open Monday through Friday. And next year, I'm excited to hear this, they're gonna have the year-end numbers for recycling. They'll have them out probably for the next meeting, which is great because this seems to be going up every year. So thank you to the public for engaging in our recycle programs. And Al and the guys down there, thank you for bringing us new programs and actually encouraging residents to do it. So that's the DPW report. Nancy.
I just have one thing. We received a grant from Morris County for a trail in the park across the street. It is 1.32 miles of trail. The grant is in the amount of $74,897, and this will cover 3/4 of the cost of the design and permitting only. Then next year, we will be able to apply for another grant for the actual construction, which would then begin in 2024. But this is a start, and, you know, we're finally being able to start something across the street. So it's good news.
Thank you.
And I
All
want
right.
to thank our engineer for, he basically did almost all the work on that grant application. And we've had several meetings that he attended with the county, so I want to thank Mark for that.
All right. Any, let's see, discussion items, not any old or new business? All right. Announcements. Christmas trees, you can put them out on the curb. When do you pick them up, to like the mid-July, January? They'll be, all right, so from today to the month to the end of January, the DPW picking up Christmas trees, and they use them for the mulch, so just leave them out on the curb, and they'll get picked up as the guys drive by and they see them. Second announcement, the free rabies clinic at Berners Township, and I know dog license renewals came out. I think they're due, by the end of the month, end of January. So if you need to get your dog a rabies shot, they're doing a free rabies clinic January 14th at the Berners Township DPW from 10 to 12. We have our reorg meeting. The reorganization meeting is Wednesday, January 4th at 6 p.m., and we'll be back to our regularly scheduled program after that. Any other announcements? Seeing none? All right. Now we open to the public to the meeting, now open to the meeting to the public, 3 minutes. We're not here to argue or debate you, but you have 3 minutes to express your concerns or ask your questions.
Charles Reynolds, Millington. I'd like to comment earlier in the meeting about being truthful and honest. That rung a bell with me last meeting when I recounted the history of the MR report and what the mayor said about receiving it and not receiving it on the 26th of October. And he said at that time he didn't recollect it, but he'd look at it and have a comment for us at this meeting. So my question is, after reviewing the meeting notes and what was said, we want to talk about honesty and policy, so that's my first question. Second question. On consent resolution 22-317, I was wondering why our current appointed acting chief didn't make this recommendation for hire. Number 3, your executive session today. 22-321 executive session, attorney-client privilege - anticipated litigation. Obviously, you can't reveal what that's all about. My only question is that something that we've already potentially are talking about, like the tort notice or things like that, or is this totally new litigation, and we as taxpayers are concerned on our legal expenditures where we're taking money from the road department and others to pay all our 3 attorneys and legal fees? And I was just wondering if this is going to end up more legal fees and we're going to continue to take from the Public Works Department to pay for our legal battles. And my fourth question is, based on all our legal expenses the past year and into the future, what steps are you taking to help minimize these expenses in the future? For example, maybe people need to be trained on some affirmative action things, sexual awareness, discrimination, or whatever, to hopefully minimize some of our legal expenses. So I'd like to hear a little bit about what we're doing in terms of training and education to reduce those expenses. The floor is yours, Mr. Mayor.
Oh, you only have 4?
That's it.
All right, so the GIF does do programs every year which we participate in. They are classes that we have to take, and we do take. So that's one. As to legal expenses, like when I go to work, I don't know who's going to call or pick up the phone. I don't know what kind of problems I'm going to have. So you can't really predict what legal expenses or legal issues may arise during the year, might arise today. I can't tell you that. As to exec session, that is something that we already know about. This isn't new. So
It's not new.
It's not new. And we didn't take money from the DPW. There was surplus in the budget for salary in the DPW that didn't get used, just like we used money today that was surplus to give $10,000 to the senior center to work on their HVAC. So it was a similar thing. Number 2, the recommendation fire that came directly from Lieutenant Chamberlain and Lieutenant Marcheski. They did all the interviews. They recommended a candidate, and that's why we put this person on the agenda, based on their recommendation. We had nothing to do with this. That was them. They run the show, and that's the person they chose. So we have faith in what we're doing, and so assuming the person meets the requirements, because he's coming from a different agency and has to take some classes and passes a physical, I'm sure that person will get hired and do very well. And as to honesty and policy, look, you asked me the question. I didn't have a final draft when you asked me. That is correct. We haven't the final draft. The final draft didn't come until, you probably know the date. I don't know what the date is.
The final report came November 1st. The draft you received was on October 21st. I asked you on the 26th of October, did you receive the draft? And you said no. And you had reviewed that, the 3 of you, Nancy, Scott, and you had reviewed that morning with MRI at 8:30.
All right, well, maybe I was confused at the time.
Confused?
I didn't have the final draft. That I know.
I didn't say that. I asked you in the meeting, did you see the draft, receive the draft, and you said no.
All right, well, I misspoke. I don't know what the
You did misspoke.
All right, well, I owned it. So, but the difference is that the report, the final draft and the original draft and whatever you saw, the conclusions, recommendations, and the thing was exactly the same as the original as it came to the final. The only thing that was changed, as we said in the past, was there were some grammatical errors that need to be corrected, and some historical things, they might have had a name wrong or a date wrong, but otherwise, their report and their findings are exactly as they wrote them.
I'm not disputing that. I'm disputing the fact that you told the public that you hadn't received the draft at the October 26th meeting when you had it 5 days earlier. That's the point. We're looking for honesty, truthfulness to the taxpayers. That's all we want.
Thank you.
Diogenes wants to find that honest man.
Thank you. Any other members from the public that are here? Mr. Ferrandino.
Joe Ferrandino, 623 Chestnut Street. In the beginning of this whole thing, not knowing anything, I drew a conclusion when I should have just looked further into the matter. But now, after reading that report, 74 pages, the first 27 to 35 was nothing but redundant blather and, what was that? Diversity, inclusion, and equity, the town racial makeup, all stuff that has nothing to do with the truth of the matter is that report was nothing more than a hit job on Chief Naga. And the reason I drew that conclusion was because in the report it said that there was a problem with the town administrator and the chief, and that the town administrator is the qualified purchasing agent, and the chief went ahead and got trailers to put out for his police force. And I'm thinking of, here's a police chief who's got a police station with swamp water running through it, and he's got to go to the town administrator and say, may I have money so I could put my police force back in action? And that there is the reason I drew that conclusion, that he should not have to go heart in hand and ask for something that he knows he needs. The other thing was, he changed the antenna on the radios. How dare he? And what was the other thing that his great indiscretion was the radio antennas? Oh, and the accreditation. So he chose again. Why wasn't he able to have the funds for this accreditation? The whole thing just looks like exactly what it is. It walks like a duck, it quacks like a duck. It was a hit job on the chief. That's all it added up to. And all of this Zoom meetings and threats of personal well-being and health, and this meeting today at 8:30 in the morning in the middle of a holiday week proves that the whole thing was exactly what it was supposed to be. Hit job on the chief, waste of money. Now, you got 30 grand for the television, another 10 grand, another 30 grand for this wasteful report. All of that money could have went and put those trailers and fixed that police department. There's a problem in this town. And supposedly, according to the report, it's unreconcilable. So rather than dump the chief, I think we should look into removing the town administrator. That seems to be the common denominator here.
Joe, the trailer, actually, the police were offered to move to Town Hall immediately after the flood. They refused. Or not the police. They were offered by the administrator to move to Town Hall. The chief refused. So it wasn't the police, it was the chief refused to come here temporarily. There are purchasing rules that have to be followed in every municipality in the state that we're not an exception to. And that's when the trailers were brought up on Wednesday, and I believe by Thursday morning, they were being worked on. There's emails, and you could see going back and forth between the attorney, our attorney, the administrator, the insurance people, and the leasing company to get these trailers in within probably 10 hours of the meeting we had, 10 hours of the meeting concluding that Wednesday night. So that is true. The antenna, like I said, that's in the report. That's true, that's what happened. The accreditation, there were plenty of funds. Scott was on those meetings. He wants to chime in. The money was there. It had nothing to do with money. It just didn't want to do it.
Money ran till October 21st, I believe.
So there was plenty of money to get the job done. That's wrong. So there was money. It wasn't a funding issue at all. It was a didn't do it issue is what it was. And that's basically all I have to say about, I don't have any other comments to say about what you said, unless, is there anything else you need to add, because you were involved in it?
Well, I find it funny that when we had to reline the pipes and we had $1 million contract, and the person that bid on that contract couldn't fulfill the contract and was awarded another 50%, $1.5 million, and now you're telling me that this is all done through the channels that be, the qualified purchasing authority, all right, why is it that that 50% over budget expenditure was okay, but not the one for the trailers?
No. The overview for I remember exactly what you're talking about. That was like 2 years ago with the budget. They had to come back and get approval from the committee to do, and that had to be 4 or 5 years ago. The trailers, that wasn't an overage. That was, they had to follow the proper procedure in order to requisition the trailers. It had nothing to do with Nancy, it's the QPA, whoever that may be. It would have happened if it happened in Greenbrook or Warren. The same process would have to take place.
So the chief, well,
Can I say, what's in the report is not correct.
oh,
That was an emergency. We did not have to go through, there was no issue with the trailers.
No.
That was not, that's incorrect in the report. It should be fixed.
thank you very much.
And you approved it as an emergency the night before.
It was a Wednesday night, and then
Yeah.
Thursday you guys started working on getting it. That's accurate. Anybody else in the public?
While we're waiting for the public, I just wanted to point out, I did speak with Mike Peoples, the head of communications for the county. It wasn't a minor issue putting those small antennas on the radios. Those small antennas compromised, I'm not a tech person, Scott, maybe you can chime in, but it compromised the warranty on those radios. One, they didn't work, and as importantly, it compromised the warranties on those radios. Those radios are $7,000 a piece. And what we put on was a $10 or whatever it was antenna that was purchased on, I believe, Amazon.
Correct.
So it was not a minor issue.
It's okay to speak now?
Yes.
Yes, sir. Good morning, Frank Liberato, Heritage Road, Millington. Just to pick up on the radio issue, Deputy Mayor, in regards to that, so even with the other antenna, the proper antenna that was originally supposed to go with the portable, it still had issues in the buildings though, and the Wagner Farm Tower corrected everything. So we're good with the Wagner Farm, everything's working in the buildings with the radios.
Scott, can you
everything is-
speak to that? That's not what caused the problem inside the schools. What caused the problem
Inside
inside the schools,
structures.
inside the schools, was that they were not programmed correctly. Scott, you're better at
Inside
that.
structures, Deputy Mayor, wasn't it
You said
correct? that
schools.
I meant inside buildings.
So
Structure.
inside the schools, the repeaters, which take the signal and propagate it in the school, they weren't programmed correctly. That's the first thing. Now, with regard to getting the radio inside structures, let's say the fire department or the library or
Correct.
stuff like that, that had always been the case, but that's been fixed with the Wagner Farm
Right, so
signal
Wagner
coming straight
Farm, we're
down
good.
into the town. That's right.
Okay, that's fine, thank you. Couple of quick questions. The officer that's being hired, is that replacing somebody who's retiring, or is that gonna be a +1?
That's for Officer McCarskey. That was approved months ago, I believe.
Okay. So now that you have the MRI report, which, Mayor, you had said, you don't know how to run a police department, and the purpose of this is to give you kind of like guidance, a handbook, what to do. Based on the recommendations in there, will we be getting a report back or some type of synopsis from the committee as far as what the 12-month look ahead is and the 5-year outlook based on the findings in there, what you'll be implementing based on your experts as far as items that they referred to, as in hiring additional officers, because for staffing purposes, I think it recommended, 6 officers in the
Yeah,
report.
that's, Frank, that's something that we're actually discussing with Lieutenant Chambrello right now. And, one of the things that the committee took away from that, there are a number of reforms and improvements that we have to make. And so that's gonna be an ongoing process, whether or not that's gonna come back, in terms of a report or a synopsis,
Yeah,
that
'cause
remains to be seen. I think that's a good idea.
I think for the public, for transparency, to say, okay, listen, we spent the $30,000, we don't know how to run the police department, now we have some type of guidance, and obviously you have to discuss with the command staff what they're recommending, but we would like to know, as the public, say, listen, our plan is, we're gonna do 2 officers in '23, 2 officers in '24, or 1 officer a year, not taking into account people retiring, but also to plan about getting the police station somewhere where it's out of a floodplain too. I know that was brought up in the report too.
Yeah, I mean, as far as staffing goes, there's a lot of nuances to that, right? I mean, there's hiring new officers, there's managing a pipeline and understanding who's in the queue for retirement. And then there's this idea of how do you augment the staff, perhaps with civilians as well, to, potentially.
Right, you have to find something that works, a formula that works.
Yeah, there's nuances to it, and that's the kind of discussions that, we've just begun with Lieutenant Chambrello.
Right, and I remember, actually, you had mentioned in one of the meetings when I had asked you about the accreditation, I think, and you correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Lavender, but I believe you had said to me, it really wasn't a funding issue, it was really a staffing issue and a time issue with getting overtime or people to work on the report within the deadline.
Yeah, I don't know if I recall I said that directly.
Yeah, it was something related to that, anyway, but,
Let's just say, I think we can all agree the work wasn't getting done, right?
well, yeah, we didn't hit the target.
We didn't hit the target.
But now, obviously, from the report, more staff going forward, depending on what mix of staff, whether it's civilian or sworn personnel, should help alleviate any of these issues going forward.
Well, what I can tell you is I know Lieutenant Chambrello is working on getting us the accreditation back as we speak.
Yeah, I think you said take about a year, 12 months from the last meeting?
It could. Don't hold me to that. I don't know. It all depends on what the gap is, right? What has to be addressed.
The only two other questions I had was, I remember, Mayor, you had mentioned a few meetings ago that I had asked regarding the JIF and them helping with setting up an HR function in town. Has there been movement on that? Is there something in place for 2023? Where do we sit with
There's
that
nothing
function?
in place yet. We're looking at our options about finding an HR person. So that is, we have been discussing it.
Is that something we could share with another municipality if it's not something you need somebody
Look into
full-time?
that as well.
We've talked to other municipalities. We've interviewed some consultants.
So you think that's something definitely in the near future that'll be in place?
I think there's a lot of value to it, yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I think it would solve a lot of, issues that arise amongst, it's just like when you have a company. You have issues with employees and you have issues with policies, and you need a neutral person that they can go to, that's not a direct person they report to basically kind of be a mediator, if you will.
Yeah, I think we took a positive step last year, at least in attempting to straighten out the review process. And, we'll just have to go into continued improvement this year.
And my last question is, have any of you made a decision yet as far as who's carrying the torch next year for mayor?
It will
in
be
January?
announced at the reorg meeting on June 4th, January 4th.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Thanks, Frank.
You're welcome. Anybody else from the public in person? Mr. Sandow.
Dennis Sandow, Millington. We make it a point at every meeting to thank the volunteers, and Mr. Pazursha did that tonight. Nobody ever takes the time to thank the members of the Township Committee for their service. Members of the Township Committee take more abuse from the public than any other volunteers in town. They volunteer for the job, they stick with it, they are unflaggingly polite to the public, even though they don't always get the same in return. And for what it's worth, at the end of the year, I would like to thank the members of the Township Committee for their service.
Thank you, Dennis.
Dennis, thank you.
Thank you, Dennis.
Kathy O'Leary Millington. First I have a question. I know two of you sit on the planning board, and we did not get a liaison report from about the planning board. The master plan is not yet done, is that correct?
That's correct. It's been worked on
Is it
this
due-
year.
But it's due at the end of this year, is that correct?
I think we've got through till the first couple months of next year, I believe.
Okay. So, and we've changed the characterization of the town from semi-rural to low-density suburban?
That's correct, yeah.
Okay. Are you aware that low-density suburban is synonymous with urban sprawl?
No, I wasn't aware of that.
Okay, I guess the chairman didn't share my email with you then. I'll share it with you later. But there's a pretty specific article that gives the elements of urban sprawl, and we fit pretty much all of them. Actually, I think we fit all of them. And it would be nice to see a master plan that, if urban sprawl is the characterization of what we ended up with, which I wouldn't argue with, what is our plan to get out of it? But that's not what I've seen from that document.
Okay. And there will be, obviously, public discussion of all the elements as we move through them. And we had a discussion about, I think the kind of semi-rural characterization of the town is, I think it's a little bit, we've kind of moved on from there, and I think that particular term was brought up and kind of seemed to be, generally agreed upon. But certainly, I didn't see the article that you sent, and we're open to other characterizations of the town that might fit better, but that was the one that we kind of came up with during our discussion.
But if that is what you landed on, and that is what that term means, and you accept that that's where the town is at, there should also be a plan to get us out of that as quickly as possible.
Right. But what I'm saying, Kathy, is that we
May I
didn't necessarily.
This is really a discussion that should be before the planning board. Town committee has no jurisdiction.
Okay, yeah, thanks, Jack, but we can talk
But
later.
there's no public comment at the planning board, unfortunately.
We can talk later on, Kathy.
Thank you. Okay, so today, you may know, is the Feast of Holy Innocents. It's also the last day of Hanukkah. Yet I never heard anything from this committee, from anywhere in the township about Hanukkah. I also have never heard anything from the township committee. It is not on any single website, no social media, recognizing any holiday other than a Christian holiday or a secular patriotic holiday in our town. You have several emails from me to at least two of you here that were never responded to. You also have an email from a faith leader from a neighboring town that was never responded to. I find it disappointing that a faith leader from a neighboring town does not even have his email acknowledged by this body. But public safety, which we talk a lot about, is more than just policing. It is about people feeling comfortable being themselves in public and being able to come together as a community. Pam Ogens came here and listed several incidents that happened just this year that would have made many people uncomfortable. I did not hear any response or any plan from anyone on this body to deal with any of those things. I would like to add to her list the burning of the pride flag that happened in June, which again was never mentioned by anyone here. No steps taken to correct any of these issues. Other towns that suffer similar incidents in their towns do have action taken from the mayor and from the committee. There is outrage expressed very forcefully, very publicly, and the statement that you still have posted and tacked to the top of your Facebook page does not cut it. So I just would like to know what it is that how it is that you expect people to feel comfortable. More than one person has come to me, and I'd say multiple people have come to me over the last 2 years and said that they do not feel comfortable expressing themselves in public. They do not feel comfortable coming forward. One of them even said they had cameras outside of their house. These are people from marginalized groups in our community. If you want our community to grow and to thrive, then diversity is important. And people should feel comfortable here. People should feel comfortable coming to you and not being derided. And I'm sorry, I disagree. I disagree with Dennis. I disagree that you treat people respectfully, because you would be returning emails. You wouldn't be calling people liars in public. You wouldn't be spreading falsehoods about residents in the town. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else in public? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, anybody on Zoom?
Pamela Ogens would like to speak.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Two 2 items. One, when can we expect some discussion from the Township Committee in 2023, steps that will be taken as a result of the MRI report?
Well, I believe Scott already answered that. We're already in the process of doing some of the recommendations already. We have to sit down and meet with the command staff and move forward with that. So right now, it's premature to say anything until we have that meeting with the command staff. Scott, am I missing anything?
No, that's right. I mean, it's going to be an ongoing process.
So what are the recommendations already? Can you tell us?
Well, one, Lieutenant Chambrilla's already, she already on her own initiated to get the accreditation back. We changed the reporting structure again, where the command staff reports to, well, at least on a daily basis with the township administrator. It's going great. They're getting things done very quickly and efficiently. So those are 2 quick steps we already took.
What was the second step? I'm sorry.
Oh, that the structure is being switched again back to where it should have been, where the administrator and the, excuse me, the command staff reports, deals directly with the township administrator and the township staff. I said it's been going very well so far. They've been great communication, and things have been getting done quickly and efficiently.
I missed the first 9 minutes of the meeting. What's the status with Chief Naga? I know you can't discuss.
We didn't discuss him in the first 9 minutes, so there's nothing to talk about. You didn't miss anything.
To Attorney Pigeon, is there a legal time limit for being on a paid administrative leave?
I don't believe there is.
Discuss Chief Naga.
Yeah, and we can't discuss that, but a general question about a paid administrative leave, I don't know if there is a legal time limit, but a month or 2 is definitely not outside of those bounds.
And in closing, I also have to take exception to Mr. Sandow's comment. While I appreciate the volunteer time of the Township Committee, having served on the Master Plan Committee for 3 years, it took up a lot of my time. I enjoyed the work. We were making progress. The committee was disbanded, and here we are 2 years later, and we still don't have a master plan. That's just my comment. But I don't feel that the sarcasm that has been directed at members of the township when they address the committee, myself included on more than one occasion, is polite or is respectful. Sarcasm has no place when people approach the township committee and ask for their comment. And I know that Mayor Dorsey, this is the end of your term. Before you open your mouth, you might want to think, is this a sarcastic response? Or am I being respectful? That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Ms. Hodgins. Happy New Year.
Her name is Ojins.
Anybody else from the Zoom?
If anybody else from Zoom would like to make a public comment, please raise your hand now.
Oh,
I don't see anyone, Mayor.
Yeah, Chuck, you already spoke.
There was one other question just came up. You guys passed an ordinance where the chief of police reports to you, and that was done several months ago. I just heard that the command center now reports to the town administrator. Is that a violation of the ordinance, or explain that for me,
It is not.
Attorney Pigeon?
We delegated the authority back, and I believe it's going to be readdressed officially in the new
I
year.
concur.
There.
That's correct. The Township Committee is the appropriate authority under state law. That does not mean that the Township Committee can't direct that the officer in charge report to the Township Administrator on a day-to-day basis.
Do you do that by ordinance?
No, they do that by administrative authority as the administrative authority or the appropriate authority for the police department.
So when was this administrative authority taken, and why weren't we told?
You were told.
I didn't hear what he said. I was just told 2 minutes ago.
Yeah, but you're not in the chain of command. So it's gonna be addressed officially back, I believe, in January.
You know, the public is very interested in this MR study after we got it for 45 days. And then you pull this move behind closed doors about who reports to whom, and I don't think it's fair. I think we need to be informed, openness, honesty, put that forward and stop being so sarcastic and nasty to us. Maybe you make that your 2023 resolution, all of
All
you.
right, address a motion to adjourn now that everybody...
I just want to say, like, did you take official action without a public meeting?
Not official action, it's delegating authority, it's not official action.
There was a vote?
Yeah, we discussed, they don't even need a vote on that.
You discussed it.
I don't need, it doesn't...
You all
need-
discussed it.
I'm not having this conversation with you.
Well, that would be a public meeting, and you know that. That would be a meeting that was closed to the public, right?
If I, as the mayor, say, hey, report to the administrator
You, as
now,
the mayor, said you just said that you all discussed it.
I said, they were aware of it, I said that they were going to report...
That's not what you
direct-
said before, but thank you.
Thank you. Motion to adjourn, anyone?
So moved.
Second?
Happy New Year, everyone.
Aye, Happy New Year. Oh, sorry, hold on.